Hi everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Event Tech Talk Show, the straight talking, no fluff series where we sit down with the people shaping the future of event technology. We talk openly about what's working, what's broken, and what's just marketing spin. Today's guest is a very special person, Brad Langley, a seasoned force in the event tech world whose resume spans agencies, startups, big players, and now one of our favorite event technology companies, CrowdComms. If there's anyone who's seen this industry from all angles, it's definitely Brad. And in this episode, we're going to dive into the evolution of event tech, what's changed, what's stalled, and where it might be headed next. So, Brad, welcome to today's episode, and thank you very much for giving us your time today.
Thank you, Adam. Delighted to be here. Look forward to our conversation, which who knows where it may go.
Absolutely. I think we could cover a lot in here, right? Because 20 plus years in the event space, and as my introduction said, you know, you've been agency side, client side, you've worked with some of the big players, you've worked in startups, you kind of really done it all, if I'm honest. But just let's start at the beginning. Like, where did you actually get started in the events industry?
Well, I've been very fortunate, and I've worked with a lot of great people across different aspects of the event industry, from a principal in the agency side, where basically I was into planning, logistics, and supporting client efforts, then moved into software and really helped plan product market fit in software and development of software to solve real world issues for planners and clients alike. Then in leadership, scaled teams, grew the business, and then really in a nutshell, it's resulted in deep experience both from a buyer as well as supplier standpoint. What I like most about it is I feel I can empathize with planners' challenges because I was a planner. I can also empathize with what technology companies have to go through to bring a product to market and that has the right product fit, if you will, and more than just being something on the shelf that people don't use. So I love it, and it excites me every day.
I always find this question interesting because most people kind of just fall into the events industry. I know that's not necessarily the case today. There are some amazing event management degrees and courses, and people kind of seek out the events industry as a career. But I think maybe it sounds like yourself and me, we kind of never really thought about the events industry being where we were kind of headed. What was it early on, would you say, that you felt, right, this industry has serious potential, you got that kind of electric feeling, you fell in love with it?
That's a great point, because I remember my mother, she would ask me, she said, "Son, is what you do legal?" And I would say, yes, it is. It truly is. We're helping people connect. And then my children would ask me, "Dad, how do you actually make money to support us?" And and I said, "Well, it's by helping people connect." And that's what I love about the event industry. Whether it was 20 years ago or today, it's evolved around how we help connect people better, and then as a result, drive business better. But it wasn't something that I would say I went to college and said, "I'm going to be an event planner." At the time, there weren't college accredited courses for that, which I'm excited there are today. But yeah, it's something that I've really enjoyed being a part of, and look forward to continuing being a part of as it evolves.
Yeah. It's so interesting you give that story, because that was a similar story for me just this last December, right? I was out in Dubai with friends. We're having beers, we're sat down, we're just having the guy chat. And Mark, a close friend of mine, turned around and he went, "Adam, I've got to ask you something. We've known each other 20 years. I have no idea how you make money." And
Exactly.
you kind of have to explain it like, yes, it's events, but it's not necessarily just party planning and throwing, these events and things like that. Like this, there's a business model here. This is actually how we generate revenue and value for people and things like that, right?
Well,
But yeah,
and
sorry, go on.
neighbors will often say, "Oh, so you're a party planner?" I'm
Yeah.
like, no, not exactly. It's in the corporate world, yes, we have to pay just as much attention to the elements as if you're planning a party, but it goes much deeper than that. And now I would say the profession has really evolved to a much higher level
Yeah.
around events.
And would you say that is how the industry for you has changed the most over the 20 years? Are there other things that come to mind in the way that you've seen the industry evolve over that time span?
It's a great question because it has evolved. Some things have stayed the same, some things have been very topical and really evaporated. So, what stayed the same, I would say, is personalization throughout the process and data. The collection of data, the use of data, the aggregation of data, and the application of data is something that I think is really evolved and will stay moving forward. Engagement with attendees has continued to evolve. It used to be just engagement was you come, you have a networking event over cocktails, that's your engagement factor. Now it's become much more sophisticated and making sure that matchmaking is paired appropriately, it's effective, it really works. I would say the ROI of events is become a very key element to
Mm,
justify the events. I mean, events are a great source of first party data. I think it's the best source out of any marketing channel as far as buyer attribution. And I would say that face to face events really deliver on that. And that's something that has really evolved well. So, in a nutshell, I would say relationships, experience design, and the human element have not changed. They just continue to get stronger and evolve.
yeah, absolutely. And I think we'll probably get onto this a little bit later, but I think this is going to be compounded even further with the thrust of technology and the way that that's changing society as a whole. I think we're going to see even more desire and more appetite for that human connection and that engagement that you described there so eloquently as well. Um, I'm going to kind of double barrel my next two questions at you because I think they go succinctly together. And that's things like trends. You know, over the 20 years, I'm sure you've heard so many people talk about trends, probably even myself at some times. And I will absolutely admit that I've probably got more wrong than I've got right. Predictions are probably a better word than trends, right? Because, you know, trends are actually data based over time. So you kind of look back historically and we often talk about what we think's coming, which is a prediction. But, you know, those trends, what trends do you think actually did stand the test of time that people predicted? And what were some of those things that you maybe thought were overhyped and just didn't stick?
Wow. That's you've gotten through the softball questions for sure, Adam. You're into the hardball now. I would say trends that have not stuck is there are quite a few. I mean, we're right in the midst of AI. AI is almost like the next generation of the internet as far as opportunity. And
Mm,
there's going to be a lot that will come from that that I'm sure we'll chat about during our time together. And some of that, I think it's important for people to realize some of that's going to stick, some of it's not.
yeah,
And you have to carefully decide and really intentionally decide where you want to apply that. I
yeah,
think, the virtual, everyone said virtual is going to be the wave of the future, and that's really come back to its appropriate water level, I think, as it pertains to events and where virtual is the proper application. I
yeah,
think venue sourcing, I think, is still in need of a lot of evolution, if you will. And I think AI will play a stronger part in that. But that's been something we're still really operating in a very antiquated process when it comes to venue sourcing today, I believe, for groups.
Is that
Uh,
because you feel that it's the time it takes to get the relevant information out of venues and the speed in which that's done, or the accuracy of that information? Where's the pain points that you see there?
I think where that is still about 10 years behind the times is it's really the most prominent method is still electronic RFP.
Yeah.
And then so number one, we're not really using technology to its full capacity. Number two, we have some direct book avenues, but those are limited more toward 50 and under group sizes.
Mm-hmm.
So there are constraints on how often planners can use that. And you look at the fact that every event starts with a venue. It
Yeah.
needs to start with a venue. So that's a pretty critical component. And I think it's an unmet need where technology has not really met the need yet as far as the capacity to solve planners' challenges there. It's still too manual back and forth, manual from the hotel perspective as well as from the planner perspective. And that's not to say that a lot of people haven't put a lot of work into it. It's just not there yet.
Yeah, it's so true, and it strikes me, and maybe there's things that are more complicated than I'm giving it due here, but we've seen the travel industry evolve, haven't we, for consumers to be able to kind of make informed decisions and be able to make decisions around budget based on offers because capacity is low at a certain time, or the venue wants to increase capacity or throw something else in addition on there. Us ourselves, when we've tried to source venues in other countries, we've got no visibility on that, so we can't actually make a decision. No, actually, rather than go with, let's say, September, let's do something in October, because we'll get a price benefit there because the venue needs some extra space filling at that time. They're actually oversubscribed in September, right? Like you say, it's that back and forth of, no, we can't do that, or it's $50,000, but no visibility on, well, if we moved 3 weeks down the way, it'd be $40,000. So
Exactly.
do you think technology will play a role in that then, in terms of kind of overcoming that challenge for planners?
I absolutely do. And you think about dynamic pricing in the airline industry,
Yeah.
technology plays a critical role. You and I can hop on a website right now, book that,
Yeah.
take advantage of dynamic pricing and the windows of opportunity you mentioned. That doesn't exist yet and hasn't for some time, even though planners have really asked for it. I
Yeah.
think another key area where technology, and this is really important at the heart of events and people and inclusiveness, is really accessibility, and where
Mm,
technology is accessible to all types of people attending an event. And the recent Accessibility Act that was passed in the EU sets a great standard for that, really globally. But in America, a lot of those trends have not been adopted just yet. And I think technology like CrowdComms is a perfect example. It meets the attendee where they need to be met as to how to access information about an event in their fashion that they can consume it in the most fundamentally accessible fashion for all types of attendees.
yeah.
And I think that's very important, and it's not spoken about nearly enough. But I think that's an emerging trend that people need to pay attention to.
I'd be really interested to look at some of the statistics around that, because you mentioned the European Accessibility Act. There's a lot of statistics here around those who have requirements and needs that they need to be met in order to make it a comfortable experience for them. I'm pretty sure those statistics exist in North America and the US and things like that as well. Why do you think there's been why do you think the market is lagging in meeting those attendees where they need to be, Brad?
It's a great question. Some of it is just general awareness that
Mm,
opportunities do exist to make it more accessible, from a color contrast standpoint
yeah.
to how they access and consume information that's on a page. And people may not, until they've seen it, and I could speak for myself, till I saw it in action, I was like, wow, this does make a big difference.
Yeah.
And but so it's first awareness, then it's the recognition that it does have an impact, and then in Europe it's similar to GDPR that first evolved in Europe, and then like in the Americas they said, oh, we need to pay attention to this as well. And I think accessibility will follow the same or very similar path.
Do you think there's also potentially a misunderstanding that making things more accessible means more budget and more cost?
I, I think you're spot on about that. That people do think that, and it's not necessarily true. It really isn't true. Software like CrowdComms, and yes, I'm biased, but software like CrowdComms built it in already
Yeah.
and has had it so at no additional cost. So I think that's a very good point. And then there's just a general knowledge where people think, well, as long as I meet ADA requirements on the physical component of my event, why do I need to worry about my digital component?
Mm.
And to be honest, they're equally the same. They're as far as importance.
Yeah. I would possibly say even more so, right? Because generally an attendee's first touch point will be some form of digital component with you, right? Whether that's your event
Yeah.
website, your registration form. Hell, if they can't register, they're never going to be attending, right? Then the
Yeah.
next step from that will be access to things like the event platform, the event app, the agenda, so they can decide what they're doing, access to information about the event, the accessibility around the event, and things like that. By the time they've got to they've got to have gone through all of those touch points to even get to the event, essentially. So it's the first and probably most important areas to concentrate on, because if they're not accessible, then the likelihood is that person won't turn up or come in the first place. And I think that's the biggest
Right.
challenge. It's kind of like I hear people say back of like, well, if somebody asks, then we'll do something about it. That's the wrong way to look at it. You need to build the accessibility in from the foundation so that those people can come. They shouldn't have to ask, is the way that I see things.
You're exactly right. In fact, what I'm seeing more of, and I didn't think of it as a trend till just now, is really companies, events are all about your company's brand. And the
Mm,
brand is the essence of what you want to convey to your potential buyers, your current clients, and your advocates.
yeah,
And it all starts with your registration experience. How is my brand really conveyed through the registration experience, both from a look and feel, from to the experience of registering? And that also plays into the whole networking and matchmaking, because the data you're collecting on that individual's profile, the more they give you, the better you can align and engage them with your actual event. So that's the thing where people are saying, "Oh, I'm just going to throw up a web form and that'll be great for registration." And
yeah,
number one, it's not hitting your brand objectives. It's not communicating the brand of your event. And then finally, it's not collecting the right data to really apply that to enhance your event downstream.
yeah. Well, while we're talking about registration, that brings me nicely on to my next question. What still needs fixing, right? Is it registration? Is it badging? Mobile apps? Are all of these things overly complex? What are the kind of things that you see in the market which you wish had just disappear overnight from those kinds of things?
Oh, it's interesting. There are a couple of things, and all I could think of is what I hear from planners, what they say they want
Yeah.
versus what they really need
Mm.
as it pertains to anywhere in the planning and attendee journey. And it's funny because many of them are still sold on the hype versus the reality of what's most important. So focusing on the planner journey first and foremost, I think a well seamlessly connected tool is important. As consolidation has occurred throughout our segment of the industry, there are a lot of cobbled together tools that aren't really built organically very well for the customer experience. So, first, everyone, I hear frequently, I want an all in one tool. My question back is, do you really want an all in one tool, or do you need a tool that seamlessly operates for you and can connect with the best in class outside of their ecosystem or outside of their area. Um, and I think every experienced planner that I've spoken with says, actually, that's what I want more than all in one.
Yeah.
Is I want something that really works for the core very well, but then gives me the option to pull in what I need from other sources, data sources, and feedback. Then we want engagement features. Well, okay, what do you mean by engagement features? Is it attendee personalization? Is it matchmaking? Is it what do you really need there? And then the third one that really boils my water, to be honest, is I have seen way too many cases where planners are sold packages, bundled packages that they don't need or even want, but that's the only way they're allowed to buy, basically.
Mm.
And that's an industry practice that embarrasses me for our whole tech martech segment of our industries. And that's what I like about CrowdComms. You're allowed to buy what you need and want versus having a package shoved at you.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but when I go out to shop, whether I go to any place that I need, food, supplies, whatever, I buy ad hoc basis for what I need. I don't just say, yeah, just load up my cart. And I know I'm never going to use 80% of that, but put it in the cart. Someone's paying for that somewhere, Adam. Someone is.
You've never been to Costco, Brad. That's your problem. You've never been to Costco. I go in there all the time and I buy stuff that I definitely don't need, but it comes as a package. You're right. It's and not ubiquitously, because like you just mentioned, CrowdComms is different, and there are others that are different out there, but I think some of these things are also the legacy way that we've sold event technology into the market, right? And, there are new models coming out, there are new approaches, there are consumption-based approaches, there are service-led approaches, there are a number of different things based on what somebody wants and needs. And ultimately what planners need is flexibility, right? Because we're working on projects that have moving goals constantly. The budget is moving up and down. The need for what is at the event is moving up and down. We cannot guarantee that we are going to have exactly 10,721 attendees at the event, because we might have 11,000, we might have 12,000, we might have 2,000. All of these things are such moving goalposts that actually for an organizer to buy based on fixed package pricing is really challenging.
Agree. And I've seen some tech that's built as if, I build it once and the event never changes. Where really, as you said, the life of a planner, and after living it for many years, a couple of decades, the life of a planner is constantly changing. Their whole world is changing. With things that are in their control and things outside of their control that impact what they have to deliver. So I think a key role of technology is the more we can be sensitive to that and develop solutions that's where technology can play a really important part to the planner. And then last but certainly not least, which is similar to what I mentioned earlier, is the whole data play, is collecting data in the right fashion and making it accessible and digestible to planners rather than just a huge data dump and saying, great, now you make sense of everything we just dumped on your plate. Good luck with that. We should give tools that make sense of this data, that illustrate and help tell the story. That's what I love about events. In addition to connecting people, is really driving business by helping tell a story, how that event made a difference in someone's brand.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, mate. I guess my next question for you are an attendee yourself, right? This is not a question I see often asked. What do you think the attendee wants from their event technology experience?
Wow. That's a great question. I would say, as an attendee, what I want is, first and foremost, I want to feel the event from the moment I start the registration experience. I want a personalized experience that says, "Welcome, Brad." I want something that recognizes or acknowledges that I know either the host of the event, or I've been to the event, or I've used the product of the company who is hosting that event, so that I don't have to rekey everything again as if I'm a brand new player. Then I want to make sure and go to that event and have exciting content, meet people that I can network with and engage, and establish a sub community with common interests. That all sounds like very basic, but that that is really my objective for coming to the event in the first place. In fact, one of the greatest challenges I think that every event faces today is people have a lot of options as to what events they're going to attend, and the cost of those events oftentimes is only increased. So they're having to make choices, and they're choosing without the event supplier even being involved in that choice as to whether I'm going to attend this event or not, even if I have before. And so they need something from the start, that initial impact and impression that says, you want to come to this event. We know you have choice, but here's the reasons why you want to come to this event. And it's because we've shaped the event experience around you, what you hope to achieve from it, and you're going to get everything plus more out of this.
I think that's such an important point that you make there about the facilitation of explicitly, showcasing what that value is up front. And I think there's another part to that, which is technology playing a role in showcasing and helping those attendees deliver the value back to the businesses on the value of their attendance, right?
Right.
Most people go home from events with a sore head, a big bar tab, and some war stories in the halls and things like that. But actually, let's be honest, as business owners or companies, we send our teams to these events for objective, whether that's learning, whether that's networking, whether that's pipeline, whatever that might be. And I think event technology or any technology really should play a pivotal role in enabling that person to demonstrate that back when they get back to the business, and putting that information, that value, saying, hey, we met all these people, these are the value of those leads, this is what I think we're going to get from it, this is what Brad spoke about on stage, and this is the impact I think it can make on our business, and this is what we should be learning from that. Whether this is an actual acronym or term or whatever, I don't know. I don't think I made it up, but the return on attendance, I think, is something that the events industry misses hugely, right? We only think about it of like the value that we extract as organizers is the sponsorship dollars, the booth dollars, whatever that is on the event, and the attendees, maybe that's a couple of business cards and meeting up with their partners and things like that. And the exhibitors, it's how many leads did I go away with? I think there's so much missed in that value of attendance. And I think if we do a better job of it, we will see the return attendance go through the roof, which is often half of the event marketer and event planner's major nightmare, isn't it? It's like, I had 3,000 people last year. Why have only 1,500 of them returned this year? And I've had to find 1,500 new people to get me back to where I was last year. And that's kind of that hamster wheel that we see people on.
I think you're spot on there. There's a perfect example of that right now is we're looking and evaluating whether to go to a particular show. So the first question is, can we afford not to be at the show? Which is always an interesting debate. And it's one of those that you say, really, if our entire marketing presence is based on whether we just have to be there and have a billboard, let's go buy a billboard in the city. You know what I mean? So then the second question is, I'm looking at how many leads we got from this show a year ago
Yeah.
and what we've done with them. How
Yeah.
many have converted now a year later, and how many are still in active conversations? And to me, that's a good gauge, because the third component is my strategy is when we go to an event, I want to establish like a community with those people we meet for a year. Not just how am I nurturing them, how am I supporting them in their business growth? What are we doing to help them grow their business over that next year? Because I want them to come back and see me a year later and say, mate, so excited you're here. We've done great things with you and you've helped us grow our business. And if we can't do that, that's where you have a situation that show wasn't doing what it was intended to do. And I've met 2 or 3 key execs that really have a good handle on that from a dashboard metrics and all of that.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, that's a small audience out of the total. But they have really taken it to the next level. That's very impressive as to how it's impacted their business in a positive way.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that, because our ethos has always been at our shows is that yes, the business opportunity is the show and the leads generated and things like that, but we've always took the opinion of like we should be adding value to that partner and that exhibitor all the way through the year with other things, right? Whether that's market intel, whether that's advice, whether that's feedback, whether that's helping them find the next recruit or things like that. And I think that's when a true value of an event and exhibitor relationship goes that step further. It's not just a transactional, how many square meters or square feet do you want to book this year? Do you want to do the billboard advertising and things like that? Yes, it can still be that, but it's also like, how else can we add value to you? And that's just from a planner side. That's not necessarily from an event technology side, but I think it's on the same vein.
It totally is. And kudos to you for doing that, Adam, and seeing that, because there aren't that many people that do it. Most of them are transactional. Thank you. I met you. You bought from me or you didn't buy from me. See you next year.
Yeah.
It's like, no. That's not the game.
I think that may be the same for event technology as well, though, right? It's like you've signed the 3-year deal, you've signed the contract, and if we don't get a support ticket or nobody complains, see you in 3 years when you're up for renewal, kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's honestly, that's the difference about event technology from other SaaS. And I've talked to a lot of CEOs in the SaaS space, and I've said, what is the predominant difference between SaaS in event tech versus SaaS in every other industry, accounting, finance, whatever. And really it's software plus service in event tech. It's actually, I'll even go so far as say it's service supplemented by software. Because in that, it takes a lot of people coming from outside our SaaS field. It takes them a while to get that, because they think, okay, we'll just deploy and install and we're done. It should run on its own. What do you mean support? They have to call support? Why? Well, we'll man that with a couple of people, like just chat. And no. The really good ones are ones that recognize that we're there partnering with you throughout the entire contract term. And that may mean jumping in when you're overloaded. It may mean solving a tech challenge when you're on site. Because frankly, I don't care what tech you use, it's never going to be quite perfect. Tech is flawed. It's inherently flawed. So you need great support and great ownership by your tech provider or tech partner throughout the entire contract and experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that segues nicely into that next part, which is, you've arguably worked with some of the largest players in the market and worked for them. And I'd really keenly like to understand like what attracted you to CrowdComms. Now, by no means is CrowdComms a small company. They punch above their weight. They've got some fantastic people working for them. They're an international company. Let's not forget Australia, UK, Europe, US. They cover the globe. But what was it that attracted you to work with a company like CrowdComms when, you know, you'd arguably work with one of the biggest players in the market?
Yeah. Well, Adam, first, thank you for acknowledging part of my answer about CrowdComms in your lead into this question, because truly it starts with the team. And that's what impressed me the most is it's a team with heart. They're authentic, they're innovative, and they really care about who they partner with. So that's, you know, that first and foremost separates them from a lot of other players. Then I saw a product that really is built for planners, not just from a developer standpoint. Let's develop this, let's put it here because it looks good for me as a developer. It's easy for me to enhance or build or whatever. It really is about what does a planner need? How do they need to access it? How they need to work in it? How can it really enhance and enrich what they're doing? So I love the configurability without complexity of the product. That's, I think, one of the best kept secrets of CrowdComms that a lot of people have not yet realized. So when I look at in the Americas, why did I take on the challenge of growing and expanding this brand awareness in the Americas? Um, those were the really key things that I love, and the fact that planners that I know have been clamoring for a fresh alternative. I mean, they've been like, help me, Brad." And CrowdComms delivers. So that's it was an easy choice, frankly. There are a lot of great players out there, as you said. I've been fortunate to work with a number of them, either as a customer or as a supplier representing them. But CrowdComms is different, and I really encourage anyone who this may be the first time they have heard of CrowdComms. They're like, "Who is this? Are they a brand new upstart?" No, they've been around for many years. 2011, I believe, and they've been very intentional about their growth and about when the product is prime to expand across the Americas. And I'm very fortunate. I consider myself extremely fortunate to be, carrying that flag in the Americas.
Yeah, I agree with you certainly about the team. They're one of a handful, I would say, of event technology companies that you don't just see sales and customer service and marketing people in and at industry events. Just this last week, an event that we were both at, Will, the CTO, on the show floor, engaging with customers, educating, helping support, learn, taking that feedback, taking that customer focus back into the product and into the business and things like that. And, the rest of the team do so much of that as well, educating, engaging, things like that. And I think that is the real difference, because that means that they've got a real ear to the ground when it comes to the needs and the requirements of the customers and the industry at large.
You're spot on with that. And I mean, to the point, like you said, Will is amazing at how he designs the product. It's beautifully designed, like a beautiful car, is how I like to say it. It just, I mean, first and foremost, it works, but the way it works, the way it was designed, saves planners money. So it's a more affordable option, but still a graceful option. And then, like you said, everyone across CrowdComms is accessible. I've had our CEO do demos. How often do you see that? I've had, and we'll answer any question with, I mean, any question very transparently and open as far as where we are, where we want to be, what we're doing to get there.
Yeah.
So it's when I say intentional, it's intentional design, it's intentional partnership. So I love it. I love it.
Absolutely, mate. My final question before we wrap, and I'm hoping you're going to make me a very rich man here, with somebody with all of your experience predicting the future of event technology and what that looks like. What kind of technologies and who should I be buying equity in? What do the future winners of event technology look like to you, Brad? What are the values of those companies that I should be looking out for?
Well, everyone's going to say AI. And first, you humbled me too much. You're giving me way too much credit, Adam.
I'm going to lose it all, aren't I? No,
because frankly, I'm still learning just along with everyone else. Because if you're in this space, you've got to constantly refine and sharpen that saw. I would say, though, in my opinion, events today are about data. That's in a lot of different areas, a lot of different stages. It still comes down to how you collect data, how you aggregate it, how you analyze it. And I think the next step of evolution for all of us will be predictive analytics. Is how I can apply predictive analytics into the event sphere for maximum use. So, for instance, if I had this many attendees last year based on these factors, what's my attendance going to look like next year? What percentage of those attendees will be active buyers? What percentage won't be active buyers? How will the how will the engagement go? Which sessions are going to be most effective based on the profiles of the people?
Yeah.
How do I develop content effectively? What will my check-in on-site experience look like? When will they crowd in? How can I best manage that aspect? What about the sessions themselves? How can I get the most out of that? The networking, the trade show exhibit standpoint. How can I gather data to predict if you're going to be an exhibitor at my show, how I can make the most effective return on that exhibit to you? So I know it's an umbrella term, almost like AI, but AI will play a part in it. But I would say predictive analytics.
Interesting. I see your vision there, because now I've got this thing in the back of my head, and I can't remember what Disney film it is, but it's when all the characters that are like broomsticks and teapots and things and stuff come to life, right? And it's like it's that orchestra of the data and the systems working together to make small adjustments and changes to the event schedule and the event plan, and maybe how many chairs you need at a certain theatre, or when a session's actually scheduled for based on interest and the likelihood of those people who are coming in being there to see it. Maybe they're coming in on the afternoon flight on the first day, so you don't want to schedule that session on the morning. You want to kind of push it to the end of the first day or the morning of the second day and things like that. And these are all those decisions that, as event planners, when we're in the thick of delivering the event in those final hours in those final months leading up to the show, that it's really, really difficult to get a full view on everything and kind of make those finesse changes to everything to really make things sing. Unless you've got a huge team to kind of look at all of those things on a granular basis. But yeah, I think those predictive analytics, working with technology to kind of make all of that move and shape in a way that's going to be most effective as an experience is a really interesting prediction.
Well, and I love the movie you selected, because the key song from that movie is "Be Our Guest."
Yeah,
and that's what events are all about. It is hospitality. It's how do you shape that guest experience? But that's also it circles back to one of my earlier comments. Our job in tech is to build, where our sweet spot is to build the best solutions possible. But where a sweet spot is not, it's to be able to connect with those pieces of data from other solutions very seamlessly to feed that data into one source to be able to do all of that.
yeah.
And so that's the challenge for tech providers. There are some tech providers that say, no, I want you only to use us. I'm going to hold you like here. And I believe the tech world of events today needs to be open to be able to pull and integrate with other data sources to do exactly what you're talking about. Is the only way to really have predictive analytics is to be able to aggregate a whole bunch of different data sources. that may not all reside in your software, but open the door to be able to feed the software or the data into your software into one place so you can see it on a dashboard and act on it in real time, not after the event when you get the survey says, well, I didn't do this or this or this right. That's reactive. That's not being it. That's where we got to change the game and make sure we equip planners with the ability to make real-time choices.
Yeah, the perfect survey is a zero-sum survey.
Yeah,
there is no feedback.
exactly.
It was perfect.
Exactly.
Brad, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you today. Thank you for dropping all of those golden nuggets on us with you. Great to see you with CrowdComms. I think that's going to be a great relationship and partnership together there. For anybody that doesn't know Brad, go and check him out online, connect up with him on LinkedIn. And if you haven't yet come across CrowdComms, do go and check these guys out. Or if you're in the UK, come and see the team in November at Event Tech Live. Brad, once again, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon on the Event Tech Talk Show.
Thank you, Adam. It's been a pleasure.